pretty much doing the blind reviews,
Yeah, it was
right?
just the practice. I think I did like 3 tests a day in the summer. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it paid off. I couldn't do it though.
No, it was a lot. I was
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have three individuals with me that increased their LSAT score by a lot. So I wanted to have them share their journeys with you all. You know, I've shared my LSAT journey, but I figured you guys may want to hear from some more people. So I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves. Christopher, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so happy holidays, everyone. My name's Christopher Jones. I'm born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. Currently live out here in Los Angeles. And in my process right now, I just applied to several law schools back in November, so I'm waiting to hear back. I've heard some good news, some bad news, so I'm still early in the process. So I'm a 0L, so starting my journey August of 2021.
Okay, Caroline.
Hi, my name is Caroline. Happy holidays, everyone. I'm originally from Toronto, and I'm currently a 1L at the University of Michigan Law School. I started studying for the LSAT in January 2019, and then I took the LSAT in July 2019, which is the weird hybrid one. I also have a YouTube channel. It's Legally Caroline, if you guys want to check it out. I've just been sharing my law school journey, basically.
Okay, Phelan.
Hey y'all, my name is Phelan. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm also a 0L, but I have submitted my applications for this current cycle and have been admitted and will be going to the University of South Carolina Law School next fall. I've taken the LSAT 3 times in 2 different cycles, applied in 2 different cycles, so I have quite an interesting journey. I also have a page called Legally Lost, so you can definitely check me out on Instagram at legallylost_.
Okay. So very first question, because a lot of people ask me about this, like, how did you guys even know you needed to take the LSAT? Because a lot of people don't even know that. So we'll go in the same order. So Christopher.
Yeah, for me, my mom actually took the LSAT back in the 80s. So she didn't go to law school. She was pregnant with my older brother, Then I came along and then, some life took a toll, but she ended up getting her PhD in counseling. But when I told her a couple years ago I wanted to go to law school, she said, well, you have to take the LSAT. And that's what I started to look and see what it was. She told me it was very hard. So right away, I'm like, okay, let me find a tutor. And that was my first step. And then I've researched, of course, I needed to have, a bachelor's degree and and then, a suitable GPA.
So I knew I wanted to apply to law school for a while, but I had no idea what that really meant. I was just telling people I wanted to go to law school. I actually found out that I needed the LSAT from watching Legally Blonde. She was studying for this test. I was like, oh, okay, so that's something I probably have to do too. But then I didn't really put a lot of thought into it because I was in high school. Like, you don't really need to be worrying about that in high school at all. And then when I got to my undergrad, there's all these panels about what you can do after your undergrad. And so I went to a law school panel, and then they gave us all the information we needed to know about applying to law school. They told us about the LSAT, the personal statement, your grades, and all of that. But first thought was Legally Blonde.
Okay. Phelan.
For me, I was late in the game. I didn't know I wanted to go to law school till my second semester, sophomore year of college. So preparing to get into those pre-law courses, I talked to my pre-law advisor. He gently talked about the LSAT, assuming that, I probably knew what it was, and I had no idea, no clue, no preparation until I got into my constitutional law class my junior year. And that was when he said, you guys should be studying for the LSAT now and preparing to take it next summer. So yeah, I was thrown into the fire as I was trying to figure out how to even begin this journey.
Okay. So did each of you take a cold diagnostic? Did you study and then take a test? How did you first take your first LSAT?
Yeah, my first LSAT, I remember taking a practice test on Kaplan and it was a 140 or 139 or something horrible. But I never took it in simulated testing conditions. I didn't really even know about a cold diagnostic. No one ever told me. So by the time I finally got into the swing of things, I was already taking time sections and then eventually time practice tests. So I never initially taken a cold diagnostic.
Okay.
I did take a code diagnostic. I also did it through Kaplan. They had like a free test on their website and they were offering free tests. I also didn't really do it through testing simulations either. I just like sped through the things just so I didn't know what my score was. And I ended up doing pretty well. I got, I think, a 158 as my diagnostic. Yeah. And so I was like, okay. And also I was feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah.
For me, again, also Kaplan. I did do it under time conditions back when we were able to be in a classroom together. Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was like a 130.
Okay.
I did not fit any of the test whatsoever. It was pretty bad.
Okay. So then, knowing where you guys started, how did you set a goal score? Did you base it off of like, this is the school I want to go to, this is what I think is reasonable?
For me, I just felt like looking at the top 25, like the median LSAT scores were like a 163 and above. So I said, if I can just get anything above a 160, if I get a 180, then cool. If I get a 165, perfect. But and then also I looked at, the average score for African American being like a low 140. I think it's like a 144. And I said, well, that's horrible. I can't get any money with a 144 based off of like the schools I wanted to apply to. So I said, well, let's aim for 160. And took me a long time to get there, but that was my goal.
Okay.
I based it also on the schools I was interested in applying to. So I was looking at top 14 and then University of Toronto in Canada. And so their median scores were about 168, 169. And I knew that my GPA was on the lower end. So I had to be even higher than the LSAT median to kind of be a little bit more competitive. And so then I set my goal at least a 170.
Okay.
For me, I also looked at the schools. However, I'm one interested in public interest.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I wasn't trying to shoot for the top 20. And a lot of people don't talk about that, but I wasn't trying to shoot for that. Actually, I'm fine with practicing in the region that I would like to practice in the South. So with that being said, I kind of ranged and looked at my scores based upon those schools. Just like Chris said, the 144s, 145s for African Americans is typically how we, what we receive as our average score. So I definitely wanted to get above that. So my range and my goal was 160 as well. And that was my goal.
Okay. So then did you guys give yourself a timeline, or were you just like, because I know some people, they set a timeline. They're like, I'm applying no matter what on this day. Or some people are like, no, I'm going to wait until I get this score and then I'll decide when I apply. So how did you guys make that decision?
Like you hit the nail on it. Like for me, my timeline kind of like took both of what you just said. Like at first I said, okay, and this was like last year, 2019. I said, okay, I'm gonna start studying in August and I will take the test in November. That's 3-4 months. Mm-hmm. Well, I have to take it in November so I can, apply early enough to go into law school. I wanted to be in law school now, August of 2020. But of course, I took the test in November, got the score back. It was a 142. I'm like, okay, like I can't do anything with the 142. My GPA is decent, and I have a lot of work experience. But I'm like, with the 140, I can't. Like I work full time. I'm a non-traditional student, so I didn't want to leave my full-time job to put myself in debt and go to a school that's not even ranked. And I wanted to go, be in the top 25 going into big law. So I said, okay. Then I sat down, January of 2020 and said, let me give myself at least 9-8 months to really study. I've put in a lot of time prior to that. And I said, okay, let me add some more time into it. 9 more months, I should be able to get to the score that I need. And when I took the August of 2020 LSAT, I got the 162. So that was, just giving myself more time.
Okay.
I kind of did the first thing more where I was like, okay, I knew I was applying the 2019 fall cycle because that was my senior year. And I just wanted to go to law school right after undergrad. I didn't know what else I would do with my undergrad degree. It was in social sciences. So I was like, oh, I'm never going to get a job. I have to go to law school. And so I knew that I was applying that cycle. So I had to take the LSAT before then. So I signed up for the July LSAT, which was the weird hybrid one where you can cancel your score after seeing it. And I was like, okay, so even if I do poorly on that one, I can still have the September test or the November test to make up for it. And so I just set July as my kind of goal. And then I still had a few backup tests to possibly take, but I ended up hitting my goal in the July test anyways. So it ended up working out.
Okay.
For me, again, initially I was going to apply for the August 2019 cycle, and I actually did not get anywhere. I was naive. I thought that the law schools looked at you holistically, and I didn't know that numbers really mattered. Once I got denied from everywhere with my very low score, I set up a timeline of studying for about a year. I am a terrible test taker. I have terrible anxiety. And I knew the test was learnable. Clearly, people are getting 170s out here. But I, for some reason, was not understanding the material, and just putting myself on a 3-month timeline was not good enough for me. So I graduated May 2019 and studied June 2019 all the way through. Ideally, I wanted to take the test in April, but COVID hit. Luckily, that gave me more time, and I took the test again in July 2020. And that from there, I was able to increase my score from initially where it was at the low 140s to hitting my goal of 160.
Okay. So Christopher, you took the exam how many times, and what score did you get on each one?
Yeah, I took the exam 3 times. So November of 2019, I got the 142. Okay. I had to retake it from there. So then I gave myself the 9 months, and then for August of 2020, LSAT Flex, I got the 162, and I took it again November and got a 162 again. So I was like, I was pissed. I was like, I'm just trying to get to a 165. So I may take it again if I get waitlisted from some schools, just to kind of get off that wait list, because I've already gotten waitlisted from 2 schools actually in the T14. So if I want to gun for it, I want to make sure I get like a 165. So maybe 4 times. So.
Okay. Caroline, you only took it one official time, right?
Yeah, I only took it the one time in July, and I got a 172.
Okay, dang. And then Phelan?
3 times. The first time, blind, 132. Okay. Second time, 140. And then this final time, 160. 160.
Okay. So, those are all still big increases from where you guys started, though. So, I guess my next question is, how did you study?
How did I study? So I'm gonna give the advice on how I studied correctly, like going from January on, because everything prior to that was a train wreck. But initially, I got a tutor, an affordable tutor. Okay. That way I wasn't breaking the bank. I wasn't stressed about my finances at the same time. So I think it's important when you look for a tutor, you try not to, stretch your budget out. Just do what you can, do what's affordable for you. So once I got a tutor, that lasted for a couple months. And then what really helped me is I had a study partner. So I had a friend of mine that I met like through Instagram, and he was taking the LSAT. I was taking the LSAT. We're the same age, very similar interests. So, we connected on the phone maybe 3-4 times a week, and went through untimed sections together. We would debate like different answer choices. We would read passages together, and it made the LSAT fun and also, very competitive. So I owe like my study partner for the dramatic increase for sure. And then also I used LSAT Demon. That was a very good tool, very affordable. And it was flexible. Like I said, I worked full time, so I needed something that I could kind of like dip in and out of. So they had, classes that I didn't have to commit to. I could just kind of like look at their schedule and say, okay, I can fit this in during my lunch break. Bam, so, and the Demon is very, they give great advice in my opinion. So highly recommend it.
Okay. And then, so since you did work full time, did you study at night, in the morning?
Oh, well, so because of COVID, I was able to work from home. And since I was working from home, I would kind of like study during my lunch break, study like 30 minutes right before I had to sign on for work, and even after work. But it was kind of sporadic, but mostly in the evening with my study partner.
Okay. And then did you take like full exams on the weekends?
Yeah, I took 1 exam a week. Sometimes 1 every 2 weeks. I didn't want to overload myself. I kind of concentrated more on time sections, like for the first 7 months. And then when it got closer to test day, I would take like 1 a week, but I didn't want to like boggle myself down with having to take, I know some people take it every day, and if it works for them, cool. But for me, I needed something slow.
Okay. Yeah. Caroline, what was your plan?
So before I started studying, I saw a post from this girl who got into Stanford Law. She had like the 176, and she was talking about how she studied. And she was like, basically, I went through all the practice tests 4 times. And I was like, okay, I can't do that, but I'm going to try my best to go through as much of them as I can. So I got my hands on, I think there's like 80 practice tests out there. I got my hands on all of them. It's a little bit easier to get your hands on them now because I think LSAT offers like a subscription service for like $99 a year. You can do that. I got mine through other ways because there was no like cheap way to get it. So I just did some Googling, but I got all the practice tests and I basically kind of went through all of them while also using Khan Academy. Khan Academy has like a bunch of free kind of LSAT prep resources. They have like video lessons explaining how to approach different questions. And they have some answers, like video explanations for some of the answers. So in the beginning, I relied a lot on that to kind of learn the basics, like how to approach all the different types of questions, what the different types of questions were. And then once I was kind of in the mid 160s, I just did practice tests like every day. So I was studying mostly in the summer between my 3rd and 4th year. So I wasn't working either. So I just was basically studying full time. And I did the whole blind review thing, but I didn't do it very seriously. So I'm not sure like how, but I'm pretty sure that kind of helps a lot because the advice is you're not supposed to check your answers right after you do the test because you don't know whether you got the answers out of luck or because you actually knew it. And so I would recommend doing more blind reviewing than I did. But yeah, so I did, I think almost all 80 practice tests in the summer before I took the LSAT.
Dang. Okay.
For me, I used the LSAT Demon as well. Love them as well as listen to their podcast. I literally stayed in the mindset of the LSAT for about 6 months, thinking logically the whole time. Sometimes that was annoying. Sometimes I would kind of, let's say, to my parents as they would argue, "Oh, that's a flaw in your statement." So I kind of always thought like that. Just to keep my mind on the LSAT, I did a lot of practice tests. Once a week, on the weekends, I did a practice test, like on a Saturday, and then did the blind review and a review on a Sunday. I did time sections on Tuesdays and Thursdays, for instance, and then I would drill Monday and Wednesday. So every day I was doing something, and I also worked. But thanks to COVID at that time, as the test was getting closer, I stayed home because we were shut down. But I also got up early and did my studying there for about an hour and a half. And then in the evening times, once work was done, I did some more, typically put in 2 to 3 hours of studying time. So that's what I pretty much did. Everything that you guys said, I did the blind reviews as well. And I didn't have a study buddy, not really. I didn't have anybody to talk to about the LSAT. It seemed like everybody that was my friends were already in law school, and the LSAT was all the way out of their heads at that moment. So it was kind of like me just trying to figure this out by myself. But the LSAT Demon definitely provided a lot of feedback and information and helping me understand the test a lot better. So it was pretty good.
Okay. So I guess you would say that you think the LSAT Demon is what helped the most. I guess you too, Christopher?
Yeah, the most would be the study partner for sure. And then second, the LSAT Demon. It was, like I said, it was affordable. It was something I didn't have to stress about paying every month. And then also it was just flexible. And they have, different classes on so many different, on all sections, but they even kind of like put it in different levels, like beginner, intermediate, so I was able to kind of like fit it to what I needed. So
right. I second that. Something with their algorithm, how they do their lessons is when you're drilling, if you get something wrong, they keep feeding you whatever you're missing. And I think that's really great. I've tried Kaplan, PowerScore, Khan Academy. I've tried it all. And the LSAT Demon literally is what was my bread and butter. They did a phenomenal job. And as I kept working on it, I feel like I went through every single test at least twice. Definitely the games. I went through the games twice, every single game. So yeah, LSAT Demon is pretty great.
Okay. And then Caroline, for you, was pretty much doing the blind reviews.
Yeah, it was just the practice. I think I did like 3 tests a day in the summer. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it paid off. I couldn't do it though.
No, it was a lot. I was like you said, I was just thinking LSAT full time. Like my brain was just all LSAT. Like there's nothing but LSAT for 2 months.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when you guys were studying, like if you started off studying one way, how did you know it was time to change your methods? Like, how did you know, okay, this isn't working anymore. Let me do something else.
That's a good question. Like when I saw that 142, I knew I had to, I knew I had to sit down and do some deep thinking and say, hey, Chris, this isn't, you want to go to law school, but you need to prove that you can get at least a 160. So, I took a couple months, I relaxed, went on a vacation. Then when, got the holidays through, and then once January rolled around, I said, okay, well, I started to like carefully just vet out the different types of platforms there were. I looked at LSAT Demon, looked at 7 Sage. I've had probably 5 tutors, like, yeah, like, and I mean, all tutors aren't, they get high scores, but they aren't like always the best teacher or the best tutor for you. So it's just, trial and error.
Okay. So Caroline, did you ever change your methods?
Yeah, so I think the advice is if you have a score in mind, you want to be averaging kind of 2 or 3 points above that score before you don't take the LSAT. And so I was aiming for a 175 in my practice test, so I knew that I would be comfortably like in the 170s on the actual test. But my score plateaued around a 168, 169 for a couple weeks, and I was like, okay, I think that's a sign that I have to kind of pick up some new like studying techniques or learn some new methods to get over that like 170 hump.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what did you do? Like, what did you change?
So that was when I started blind reviewing. Before that, I was like, oh, I don't need to blind review. Like, I'm sure if I just do some practice, I'll be fine. Like, I was a little bit, I think, because my diagnostic was a little bit higher, I was like, oh, like, I'll be fine. Like, I can just take some practice tests and do it. Yeah, like even then, that's not how it works. So I had to actually like sit down and go through each question and blind review, and then like make sure I really understand how to do each question. So I went back and rewatched all the videos on like what the different question types are, like the difference between like must or like should and stuff. And I was like, okay, I have to like reconfigure my approach because my score kind of plateaued at like a 168.
Okay.
For me, definitely, I saw a plateau when I was in the 150, 155, 156. It just stayed there for 3 months. What I realized was I was thinking that we're supposed to finish the test. On LSAT Demon, our tutors tell us if you're in that range, don't finish the test because clearly you're missing out on easy points in the beginning. So I slowed down and focused more on accuracy than speed, and that made a huge difference. You can get right there in the 160s on each section if you get 20 points, 21, 22 points in just each section. So that's what I did. I focused on that, slowed my speed down, focused on, say, this month I'm focusing on getting 21 points straight back to back, correct every single time. And that's what I did. As time goes on, my speed started to get faster on naturally. But my accuracy never depleted from it, if that makes sense. So that was the big game changer when I started seeing my score just staying stagnant. I was speeding and thinking that we can finish the test in 35 minutes, and that's what you're supposed to do. So that helped me.
Okay. So now let's get into like some advice and some tips. My first question is like, what's the worst advice you got? Like just general advice about the LSAT. What's the worst?
Worst advice. I wouldn't even call it like bad advice. It's just like advice that wasn't good for me. And reading the question stem first wasn't good for me. Some people do it and can succeed at it, but for me, it was better to read the stimulus. I'm talking, logical reasoning. First to really understand the argument. I had a tutor that swore by it, and I was getting decent scores, but after I kind of made that switch and kind of felt a little bit more comfortable with LR, it was because I made that switch to reading the stimulus first. So find what's best for you. Both methods, I know certain people prefer, but for me, it was, like I said, the stimulus first.
Okay. And then let me add to that though, so you can do it at the same time. What was the best advice on the other end?
And the best advice would be like, okay, like for all 3 sections of the LSAT, like what the LSAT does, it's just all a test about like comprehension. Like even with games, LR, and reading comp, it's all about, reading what the test provides you and just making sure you understand it. Like the LSAT demon talks about actively reading and reading comprehension, and not necessarily just being so gung-ho on writing, like, I don't know, like little notes on the side, and just like really just carefully like reading. Like for me, I've never been one to like, I enjoy reading, but like when I was in high school and middle school, I didn't read a lot. Again, growing up in Baltimore City public schools are not the best. I never really had to read to get through school. So like for the demon to stress the importance of just actively reading, taking your time and pacing yourself is what really helped me not only remain confident in the test, but get to the score that I wanted.
Okay. Caroline?
I think I would agree that it wasn't necessarily bad advice. It was just advice that didn't work for me and my study style. So similarly, I got the advice that when you read a question, you should try and guess what the answer is before you read through all the answers. But I found that I wasn't really good at that, because I would just guess at like, it would just be all over the place. And then my answer would just not be in one of the answers they provided. And so for me, that just kind of felt like a waste of like brain power. It just made more sense for me to read through all the answers and then figure that out on my own, rather than try and guess what the possible answer is. Also, I know some people recommend like highlighting or underlining for reading comprehension, but I'm not very good at highlighting. When I like highlight books, the whole page will be highlighted because I never know what's important, or if they want me to like circle keywords, and like this all seems important to me. So I really quickly realized that like does nothing for me. So it just makes more sense for me to maybe like take one or two notes or something, but definitely not highlighting or underlining.
Okay. And then what was the best?
I think the best was, so people who had taken the test previously said that even if you felt like in your practice test you were finishing on time or with a few minutes to spare, there's something about being in the actual testing environment that seems to make the time go by faster. And so you should be practicing and aiming to have at least 5 minutes or so like of spare time, because on the test that kind of 5 minutes just disappears. And so I did that. And so I was able to, going to the test, I think I finished each section a few minutes earlier. And then on the test itself, I was like down to the wire, like finishing things like at the last second and bubbling things in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bailyn?
You guys all took some great ones. Mine was, the worst advice that, like you all said, the advice that I did not think worked for me was to skim through your reading passages for reading comp. Just skim through. And then go ahead and answer those questions based off of what you skimmed. That was terrible for me. I couldn't do that. I didn't understand the passage at all. I actually found myself rereading the passage and highlighting a whole lot. So I guess the best to counter that is I read the whole passage. I read it in its entirety, and I went in order of the questions. I didn't jump around. I found a lot of times I was wasting time jumping around as well as highlighting. So if I just slowed down and answered the questions in order, it was pretty smooth from there.
Okay. So now let's go through and you guys give like the thing that helped you in each section the most. So like each 3 sections. We won't go into the writing and all that, but
So like for larger games, I'll start with like, for me, it was just having a nice sharpened pencil, a nice clean eraser, and just being very neat. Mm-hmm. At first I would have like all this scrap paper and I would just, I don't know, my diagrams would look crazy. But if you kind of just take your time and like, in larger games, you have to make deductions and limitations and stuff. And, just kind of like carefully make sure they're nice and organized, like almost OCD with it. Mm-hmm. It really helped, and especially with time, just keeping things neat so you don't have to keep erasing all the time. So that's what I would say for larger games. That's a simple fix. For LR, like I mentioned, reading the stimulus first, understanding the question types. I haven't taken a test in like 3 months and I still remember, all the question types, I'm sure. And like, understanding, the conclusions, your indicator words, just really getting into like the mechanics of LR. And then reading comprehension, like I mentioned, just actively reading, taking your time and understanding what's written. And then also like I made like just a lifestyle change and I added reading into like my daily life. I would try to find some enjoyment out of it. You know, I have like 6 books now because of that's kind of the way I started to prepare for reading comp. Is just, especially in quarantine, you know, you get hooked up looking at Netflix and, you know, all YouTube and everything. You kind of got to like step away and read more, especially if you're getting ready to go into the LSAT. So
yeah. Okay.
I think for logic games, I definitely agree. I was really messy at the beginning too. I would do like half diagrams and then figure the rest out in my head. And then by the time I reached the last question, everything would just be a mess. And I found that it was actually helpful to have individual diagrams for each question and have everything super neat, because sometimes you reach the last question and you realize that some of the diagrams you've drawn out already are helpful for the last question or maybe one of the other questions, and it just helps you save time. And it, like, I get really stressed out when things are messy, but then I also like get stressed when like I don't have everything with me, which like creates more mess. And so I had to like really force myself to be neat and like have nice pretty diagrams. So I agree, like logic games, you have to be neat and you have to try and like think of it as like a game, because if you get too kind of hung up on it, you get stressed out, and it's just, and studying just is not fun in general. But if you think of the LSAT as like a fun game, it helps a little bit. You have to like trick your brain into being like, you know, this is something I like doing, or at least like for the few months that you're studying. For logical reasoning, I think I got hung up because a lot of times I got questions wrong. I would actually erase the right answer, and then because I doubted myself, and then I would put like the wrong answer. And so I had to make sure that I really understood what the difference was between two possible answers, because I was like just missing just small details between two statements. And to me, they seemed like the same statement, and I couldn't really figure out why one was on, one wasn't. So I had to like really go back and understand what each answer was and kind of why each answer was wrong. And then in terms of reading comprehension, that was my worst section. I think what helped me the most was, I don't know if you guys noticed, but at the end of like different reading passages, it will be like adapted from this source. And I saw this video about how if you actually go to the source, you'll find that the passage is different from the passage on the LSAT. They take it and then they make it more complicated, they make it harder. And so I was like, oh, I know how to read. Why am I struggling so much with reading comprehension? And I found out that, like, yes, I know how to read normal daily passages. I don't know how to read the LSAT because they've adapted it and they've made it trickier. And so I was like, okay, I can't feel bad about struggling with this. It's just something that I have to learn how to do because it's so unique to the LSAT.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For me, logic games was my best area. So I guess what helped for me, unlike you guys, excuse me, is being neat. But I did I guess I put every rule in the game as much as I can, basically making inferences, as many inferences as possible. And sometimes in one game, I can make 4 different kind of like worlds. And by the time I get to the question, I basically answered all the questions already. So that's a little bit easier for me to show than say, but making as many inferences as possible before even hitting those questions, that really helps me. For a logic game, logic reasoning, I kind of was skeptical for everything. I was like, really? As I read the stimulus, I was like, really? Is that what he said? Okay. Like, I will always be skeptical, kind of not taking it for what it is, unless the question asks us, take this as true. Everything that they're saying is factual. What needs to be said or what is being inferred here? That's the only time I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this as for it is. But other than that, I'm skeptical of everything. Trying to find the flaw or trying to find the issue in every stimulus. So I don't take it as it is at face value. And then for reading comp, that was my worst area as well. I trained myself to find joy in reading. Like, I'm going to force myself to say, "Ooh, this is so fun. I cannot wait to learn about dinosaurs." And so even though I hate it, but just training myself and telling myself, this is going to be an interesting passage. Let's see what I'm going to learn about today. Just so I can get through the reading comp area. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Do you guys have any like last words of encouragement, just some general motivation for the people watching?
Just take your time, like some people say 3 to 6 months. You know, it took me about 1.5 years, to be honest. So just, take all the time you need. You definitely, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but you can reach out to me. My Instagram is Christopher20X, the number 20 and the letter X. And also my YouTube channel, Christopher20X. So feel free to reach out if you need any assistance.
Yeah, same. I'm happy to answer any questions about the LSAT too. I think just like, I don't know if this is encouraging or it might not be encouraging, but like the LSAT is just kind of one obstacle you get through. And then once you pass that obstacle, like it does not matter for the rest of your law school career. Like no one in law school asks about your LSAT. No jobs I've applied for ask me for my LSAT. Like this is just one obstacle. And then once you're past it, you're good. Like it won't ever come up again.
Yep.
Yeah, literally what you guys said. I'll say that, I don't know, make the LSAT fun. That's the best way I can say to make this thing a little bit less painful. Just make it fun. See what you're going to learn. I don't know. I think there's a study currently going on about those who learn and do the LSAT, I don't know, gain something in their brain that allows them to like unlock logical parts of their brain that regular individuals would never have. I don't know. I read it during the LSAT. So just take advantage of the opportunity of learning something new and challenging yourself and just make it fun. That's what helped me. So you guys got it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Christopher, Caroline, and Phelan. You guys don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, y'all.